Hello, this is Karen Tully continuing to report from our meeting on digital tyranny with the Republican women of Baltimore County. And we were honored to have Dr. E.J. Antoni, and he is with the Heritage Foundation, which I'm sure everyone has heard of. He's also an economist who focuses on fiscal and monetary policy. Your work has been featured in the Washington Times, Washington Examiner, Breitbart, the Federalist, Fox News, and other prominent places. And you're here today to explain digital tyranny. You know, some people think we already have digital currency, or I should say you're here to explain digital currency and how it leads to tyranny. Some people already think we have that because we have where our paychecks can be deposited in. We have credit cards with all those things. But digital currency is different. Can you explain how it's different?
Certainly. So one of the things we want to distinguish between is what we would call a digitized currency, which is basically what we already have. Some of the things you were just alluding to, I get paid with direct deposit. I make payments online. I pay with a credit card, etc. I'm not actually exchanging physical dollar bills and coins anymore. So it's going through a process of ones and zeros, moving down a wire, basically. That means those transactions have been digitized. But that's very different from a digital dollar, even though the names sound very, very close. So with a digital dollar, every single dollar, in fact, every single cent gets a unique serial number, kind of like a fingerprint. And what that allows the government to do is to trace, track, and therefore tax every single transaction.
And you were saying that there's also one central place that all of these things go to?
Exactly. So unlike today, where if I wanted to, let's say, buy something from you or send you money, whatever the case may be, I can hand you physical cash. I can wire you money through a service like Zelle or Venmo, any of those things. I could write you a check. All of that goes away with these digital currencies. And in that case, anytime you want to have any kind of transaction, doesn't matter how big or small it is, all of those transactions are routed through the central government, through the federal government.
Is that the CBCD?
Right, that would be a CBDC or central bank digital currency.
So that's what it's called, the central bank. I think that's a very, very good explanation that people actually. I had listened to something, they said they could follow the dollar anywhere.
Right, so again...
Well, now we can't. You spend $1, no one really knows where it is. I think you said in your meeting that you could with great effort, but everything could be tracked.
Right, so because every single transaction is digitized and every single dollar becomes unique, now every single cent can be tracked as it moves from person to person, and you can be monitored no matter what you're doing or where you go.
And what are some of the real dangers that you see in that?
Oh, goodness. Well, besides just the issue of surveillance and the complete invasion of privacy, that level of surveillance gives the government an amount of control that, frankly, Orwell could not have even dreamed of in 1984, for example. So the government has the ability to see how much you're paying a babysitter, and then to tax that babysitter for the $40 or $60, whatever it may be, that you paid that young person. The government has the ability to say, you know what, you're spending a little too much on firearms and ammunition, right? The government has the ability to say, you're spending too much on gasoline. So again, the amount of control that a government can exercise when they have this level of surveillance and this amount of power is really unprecedented.
It sounds futuristic, is it?
No, it's not futuristic at all. We've already seen a pseudo, if you will, CBDC implemented in China as part of their social credit score system. There are already central bankers around the world who are talking about the need for a CBDC in order to do all of these things. I mean, it sounds crazy to us, but one of the things that's being openly advocated for by some major governments in the world today is to actually put an expiration date on your paycheck. In other words, you only have a certain amount of time to go out and spend your paycheck before it literally just evaporates. And what that does is it limits how much you can actually save. And a person without a lot of savings is ultimately dependent on the government.
That's what they're heading for. They want us to depend on the government. They want government to be our God. How does Biden and Secretary Yellen feel about this?
Oh, goodness. Unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of good news there. Both of them have failed to take the the necessary stance to oppose these things, probably because they would like to see us move in that direction. Both the Treasury and the Federal Reserve have already started programs that will not necessarily implement a CBDC, to be clear, but they're already in, let's call it, the exploratory stages of a CBDC.
So, Dr. Antoni, where can we find more information on this, to verify it, which I know it's very verifiable, of course, but people like to follow up, and I encourage people to read about it. Where can they read more about you or read more about this subject or take action to help?
They can find a whole host of information on this, but also other topics too, on the Heritage website, heritage.org. So for anyone who's looking for information, like you said, who wants to verify any of this stuff, it's all available on our website. Tons of links and tons of great information for people. In terms of what people can do, though, and some of this you will find on the Heritage website. People need to be very, very active in the political process, and they need to make their voices heard to their elected representatives, so that the people, whether it's in Washington or your state capital, wherever they are, the elected officials need to know that the people do not want this central bank digital currency.
Well, thank you. I know that everyone from the meeting now understands what the central bank digital currency is, and we appreciate your work. We appreciate the presentation today. God bless you as you continue on this, and we share this word so that people understand what's happening in our American society.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.